Hey, thanks for checking out the Insiders podcast. And if you haven't already, please click subscribe. We've got new interviews dropping every week. For more details, check out distinctmedia.ca. Welcome to the podcast, Richard.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Firstly, tell me about yourself. Who are you?
That's an interesting question to ask a meditator.
There you go.
Who tends to disappear when you meditate enough? So, but yes, so I guess we could talk a little bit about the background. So I'm a lifelong martial artist. Went to Japan when I was about 24 and practiced there for about 15 years, the martial arts, samurai arts, swordsmanship, jujitsu, and the like, and ultimately received those arts and have become an instructor and pass those on now. In the process of my training, I discovered a type of meditation that helped in my training, and now I pass that on to people. And it's quite unique and different from what else is available.
If you read the bio of your latest book, which we'll get into in a second, and also on your website, it says that you've been meditating since you were a teenager. How has that changed for you? That's not normal. You obviously know that. To meditate for such a long time and at such a young age. So how did it start for you and how has it changed?
Started actually at age 12. I joined a martial arts dojo as a birthday present. My father bought me a month private lessons and that sort of thing, at a karate dojo. And I enjoyed it and I stuck with it and joined the group lessons. And each group lesson, the instructor would have us do a minute of meditation in the beginning and at the end. Oh. And he would just have us sit cross-legged with our spine straight, and then he would say, meditate. And we would do that. Mm-hmm. But we were never instructed on what meditation was.
Okay.
So, I was quite terrified of him, actually, and I was afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, of course.
As a kid. And several years later, I eventually decided I'd ask a senior, what are we supposed to do in meditation?
Yeah.
And he said, I just visualize the techniques. Oh, okay. And so I did that too. And I guess that is a form of meditation. It's just visualization. But I didn't really get an exposure to what would normally be thought of as meditation until I was 16. My girlfriend was at my house. We lived on a horse ranch. I went out to take care of the animals. I came back in and I found her sitting on the dryer, cross-legged with her hands in her lap like so, and eyes closed and spine straight. And it struck me as odd. It was nothing like the meditation we ever did, and I didn't even know what she was doing. So I asked her, what's going on? What are you doing? And she says, I'm meditating. Oh, okay. Well, what does that mean to you? What is the meditation you're doing? Because I've been doing meditation for years, and looks nothing like, we didn't take an pose like you're taking.
Yeah.
She explained basically what she was doing. And at the time she didn't give a name. I'm not even sure she knew a name for it, but it was essentially what you'd call mindfulness meditation, a derivative of Vipassana, but a secularized type of meditation. And I just soaked it in. And later that, I don't know if it was the same day or the next week or at some point shortly thereafter, I had a terrible argument with my mother. And just in a rage, stormed out of the house in the evening. And we lived in some foothills, and I climbed up a hill behind my house. And once I got to the top of it, just steaming, I had this very strong inner knowing that I needed to go and do this meditation. So I sat under a eucalyptus tree on the side of the hill and attempted to do what she showed me to do. I don't know how long I was up there for, but I would suspect several hours. And at some point, all that rage just disappeared. And going deeper, it just felt great going deeper. At some point, my sense of self disappeared. At some point, there was just awareness. And then the barriers of where it felt like my body was versus nature, that the construct that I'm separate from nature disappeared. Okay. And it was the feeling that there was this seamless connectivity to everything. Well, like everything was just one field of energy. This is not mental at all. It was just perception, not a single thought. And that was the beginning of it.
All right. I could take this conversation in about 500 different directions. I'm totally interested in this. For one, I would be I have to ask you about Japan. First of all, karate, of course, is a Japanese oriented martial arts. So, would you say that that was kind of the beginning of your Japan life? Is it karate and your exposure to karate that made you want to go to Japan? And second, meditation is done in many ways all over the world. Tell me about why Japan and Japanese style of meditation, I guess, is significant to you.
Incidentally, I practiced karate, and then a girlfriend I had, her father was an instructor of Japanese martial arts in the local area. He was a Japanese man, and he was the one who convinced me, or ultimately introduced me to the idea of going to Japan.
Okay.
And I didn't act on it. I was probably 17 or 18 at the time, and I thought I was going to marry his daughter, and he was kind of treating me almost as if I was a future son, and he wanted me to master the arts, and that he loved the martial arts.
Was he jujitsu?
Got to go to this instructor.
Was he jujitsu or was he karate?
He was what's called Aiki Jujitsu and swordsmanship.
Okay.
And so I didn't go to Japan until I was 24. And once I got there, I just started going around and looking for. See, I had wanted to participate in the UFC when I was young.
Oh, okay.
Mixed martial arts. And I saw, Hoist Gracie is back in the beginning, and I thought, I could beat that guy.
Okay.
But I got run over by a horse,
Mm-hmm.
and it did tremendous amount of spinal damage, and so I just wasn't able to get into the hard training. I had an Olympic.
Aspirations.
An Olympic wrestling coach
Yeah.
that was coaching me through the wrestling, and I had a jiu-jitsu coach, and and I was serious about it.
Wow.
But yeah, my back just kept falling apart on me. So, and once it goes out, you're out for a couple of weeks anyway, at least. And so it just was not constructive. And I love the martial arts, and I wanted to continue, but I needed to find a way of training that I could do with my bodily situation. And I ultimately found that the samurai arts were different in that, see, not many of them are still alive. There are very few that are actually still contain the essence of those arts. Most of them just devolved to form. But there are still a few that are relatively unknown. In the Western world, not known at all. But even in Japan, many of them are known, but the actual thing is not. It's more like the reputation is known, but the actual art is not known.
Okay.
So when I went to Japan, I was searching around to find really somebody that could beat me easily. That's what I was looking for. Someone that could just effortlessly beat me. And then I found that person. It was a 72-year-old man.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
What was he?
Unbelievable.
What was he doing? A form of jujitsu?
He was doing what's called Daitoryu Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. He was one of the very few teachers who teach the depth of it, that actually mastered it. And most of what you find is not the authentic thing. And he was just absolutely, you just couldn't perceive what he was doing. It was so smooth. His movement was so smooth. It was just non-telegraphed. I wonder if you've ever experienced that before, but it's very difficult to read something that is not telegraphed. And he just effortlessly diffused anything I did and threw me down. Just amazing. Pinned me and wrapped me up like I was like it was a spider and I was a fly.
You were a child. Yeah.
Yeah. And when he was done, he just sauntered off as if nothing had happened. It was like it was effortless. Didn't change his breathing at all the entire time. And so I joined his art, and that's where it began. And I just realized that he had a kind of efficiency of movement and efficiency of mind as well that I really, really wanted, and I thought was necessary to get to that level. There's technical training, and then there's nervous system level training. There's a deeper level training. Kind of mind-body connectivity type training that's also important. I wanted to get to that. And so that's where it really all began.
You now have a style of meditation that you've written about in your book, The Warrior's Meditation, called Total Embodiment Meditation. And we might be jumping ahead a bit here, but in theory, from what I've read, it's the idea that you can get into a meditative state immediately, regardless of whatever activity you're up to. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about that. But I also want to ask you, I'm a runner, and I've always said to everyone that when I run, I get into this state. My mind clears, and things start to come to me. Ideas, concepts, problems that I've been juggling around in my mind start to find solutions. And I've always said, for me, running is a meditative state. Is that similar in theory to what Total Embodiment Method would be?
It's interesting. I had yes. So there may be some differences, but I believe that you're heading certainly in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But what the in Total Embodiment was about was, so there's meditation. You have a traditional type of meditation, and there are many variations of it. But there's one common theme throughout all the traditional forms and religious forms is that they all come originally from religious forms, which are renunciation practices.
Okay.
And because of renunciation practices, they're really trying to renounce the world, and they're trying to renounce the senses to get to some place that's fundamental prior to the world and the senses. The difficulty with that is that it requires a tremendous amount of concentration to do.
Mm-hmm.
The second difficulty is that there's the assumption that the senses are somehow wrong and that the world is somehow wrong. It's a kind of judgment. It's like baked into the system. It's very difficult, if not impossible, for most people certainly, to allow that type of meditation to blend seamlessly with their daily life, because there's already a judgment against daily life baked into the training. And so that's where I began, was with the system that kind of had that essence in it. The concentration was the key. That was the assumed mechanism for meditation. And that just could not blend well with the martial arts. It's not going to lead in the right direction.
In introduction to your book, you stated that one of your students had suggested that you talk about this form of meditation, but I guess avoid being spiritual about it. How are you spiritually? What does that mean to you? And does meditation require a form of spirituality to be successful?
No. So let's see. I tend to be prone to have visionary experiences. Some people just are. I've had them since I was a child.
What do you mean by that?
And they kind of directing towards what you would describe as a kind of spiritual awakening, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so I found that to me was the most valuable point of meditation. After I'd gotten to a certain point in the martial arts, I realized that there's not a lot of people that are going to go that far in the martial arts. There's not a lot of people that are going to dedicate themselves to that kind of that path. Mm. But there are a lot of people that can benefit from the meditation and that are interested in spiritual awakening. So I was originally teaching it in that way. And then after a couple of years, that student said, as I've been practicing this, I could see that, if you just change the terminology, it could apply to anybody, because really all you're doing is just vastly improving people's quality of life.
Yeah. And
when you go towards, an authentic kind of inner improvement of quality of life, an awakening can occur naturally. You don't even have to talk about it.
Was there a relationship between your search for, I guess, the perfect form of meditation and spirituality in any way? Was there any type of religious upbringing that you had that maybe opened your eyes to the possibility of meditation improving your life?
My family was not religious.
Yeah.
But there was a neighborhood woman who was very, very religious, and we children were brought into a Wednesday night Bible study, and she was pretty tight about it, and it was very, very judgmental. It was a very, very fundamentalist type, type of Christianity, with the assumption that they were right and every other form of Christianity was wrong, and all that goes with that.
Yeah.
And so I was only maybe 7 years old at the time, but we were told that we needed to convert our parents.
Okay.
And now many of our parents were Christians. I mean, this was back in the 70s, early 80s, and other denominations. And, we kids didn't realize that was going to be a problem, but we were the, shepherds of the Lord, and that was our duty. And if we didn't convert them, they would certainly go to hell and suffer for eternity. And so that was a terrible, terrible thing to do to children.
Yeah.
In retrospect, but
happened to me too.
I didn't know.
Happened to me too. So I get it, man. Right? When you're as impressionable as you are as a child, to be told stuff like that, it's psychologically challenging to rise above that mentally, if you know what I'm saying. Or if you decide that this isn't what I think anymore, or what I believe, there's a bit of a internal psychological battle you have to deal with, for sure.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah. I mean, they're actually putting the weight of other people's souls of older, your parents' souls on your shoulder. It's just, wow.
And even though they may not articulate it in that exact way, like you're going to burn in hell, it's loosely implied. It's taught in a way
it was well articulated. There was no doubt that that's what was going to happen. It was said exactly like that.
Okay, well, let's jump back into your book and your form of meditation. So now, I mean, would you say that this is an evolution of your personal journey of meditation? Is this what you do now exclusively, or is this just one formula, one format of meditation that you utilize when it makes sense, and there are other forms that you can use when they make sense?
So the total embodiment meditation is really about embodying meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that means is that there is actually no form.
Okay.
Not once you get to a certain point. It's just principle based. So the original form, or the form that I teach in the Warriors meditation, is sort of it's sort of a step up system that I developed to get to the level that my teacher and I in Japan were working at.
Okay.
And so part of the issue that people experience that makes it difficult to meditate is we've been trained since our early childhood to concentrate, to focus, to pay attention, and it's always exclusive. It's always exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that's going to get you killed out in the forest. It's the opposite of what hunter-gatherers do. It's opposite of what a high-level warrior would do on a battlefield who's surrounded by other high-level warriors who want to cut him down.
Mm-hmm.
You start focusing on one person, you're going to get killed. Right? I don't know if you experience this in karate, but at some point you actually have to learn how to use your eyes peripherally.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So what does that mean, though? Like, I guess I'm just trying to dig a little deeper into this with this form of meditation. And you also state in your book that it's something that you can pop in and out of regardless of your activity at any given time. Right. Is this something that you would recommend people start to learn right from the get-go, or is meditation a longer road?
Absolutely. And so it sounds like it's more advanced, but it's actually a very instinctive thing. So if you take a person and you put them out into the forest for 4 days alone, assuming they don't just go into panic and get killed, but they're out there and their only job is just to be. This will just emerge naturally. It's an instinctive thing. It's just that we're under the wrong circumstances to bring out that instinct.
Okay.
And so we have sort of denatured perceptions as a result of being in a denatured situation for our whole entire lives. So what I find is that children pick this up super easy. They can meditate this way and run in meditation within a session or two. It's absolutely amazing. It's a great place to start. And once you get into it, you just become extremely flexible with consciousness, the ability to use your mind in incredibly flexible ways, your senses in incredibly flexible ways, and without getting stuck in biases. That includes psychological, mental biases and that sort of thing. So it's a very freeing element.
Seems to me that meditation in many forms is being taught by many people in many places these days. I, for one, have the Sam Harris app. I think it's called Waking Up. It's like a 5-minute meditation per day. I know that you have also done 24-hour meditation classes online for your students. You teach online. You have something on your website where your students can log in. And what kind of advice do you have for somebody who might be kicking the tires of meditation, considering learning a bit about it or trying it? Where do they start?
The first thing is to actually make a commitment. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to meditate, realize it's going to take a little time just to get the hang of it, especially if it's a traditional type of meditation that requires concentration. It doesn't mean that may be well suited to you. Mm-hmm. It may be something, you can't say that there's any one thing that's just suited for everyone. Yeah. But if you're going to do it, actually dedicate some time to it, which means just show up for yourself, show up for the meditation. So it's persistence. And this is what people in the martial arts as well, you'll find that when they train after 3 months, most people give up. They're just not willing to show up each day. And the difficulty people have is the mind will project out to all that the meditation will entail, the time that's involved and all of that effort, and then just say no in the beginning, not take any step. Mm-hmm. All you got to do is get that first inch of forward momentum. That's what you got to do. You got to get some momentum. And once you get the momentum, the rest is easy. If you think about the momentum, it's the whole process is easier than if you think about the end goal.
Mm. Is there a
Right?
particular
For
amount of
beginners, just show up, right?
so every day, presumably, or even more often
Oh,
than
yes.
that, right? Is there
Every day is really important because then you're taking advantage of the brain's capacity to change through neuroplasticity.
okay?
Neuroplasticity allows your brain that the primary way that your brain allocates and reallocates resources is at night when sleeping,
Mm.
and it determines where to allocate those resources for new neural pathways, or to enhance a neural pathway, or to reduce or destroy a neural pathway, is based on what you did during the day. It's constantly adapting to your daily life. And so if you're being a jerk all day long, well, that's what you're reinforcing.
Yeah, I guess.
If you're falling into compulsions and urges all day long, well, that's also what's being compulsive. Being formulated by the brain or being built into the brain. But if you start going towards awareness, towards calmness, towards clarity, the brain then starts to adapt, and it gets ever easier because your brain is enabling it as you go.
I would consider myself a dabbler. I certainly am no expert at meditation, but I have tried it and I do from time to time. I think that one of the greatest obstacles that people like myself experience is focus. The inability to keep the mind clear. We tend to drift off into thought, and then we realize, oh, I got to get back to where I was trying to get. Is there a place for beginners is there a time when you might go, I feel like I got there? Do people kind of get through a doorway where it's like you've been trying it and trying it and trying it, and then one day you're like, wow, I sat there for 5 minutes and everything all of a sudden made sense. I think I'm getting it. Like, is there any tangible way of feeling that?
Yeah, well, what happened is at some point that drifting thing just stops. And now, if you're using a form of meditation that's concentration based,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not particularly good at concentration, then it is going to be doubly difficult for you. Whereas meditation is not concentration based, which makes it a lot easier. So even people with ADHD, they do much better with the Warriors meditation because it's not a focus based, but a defocused based meditation. It's essentially the exact opposite of traditional forms of meditation. I swung a 180.
Okay, fair. Threw me for a loop there. Really quickly, you are an author of, I think, 3 different books before this one. The Unbound Soul, which says online that it's one of the best consciousness books of all time by Book Authority. You've got Insperience, Meditation Unbound, and then The Psychedelic Path, an extraordinary, powerful, unbiased account of hallucinogens as they relate to the spiritual path. I have to ask you a little bit about that one. What's the origin? What's the background of that book?
How could you resist that?
What do you mean by hallucinogens? It's a wide-ranging topic.
So what would traditionally be described as psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's DMT and ayahuasca
Mm-hmm.
and salvia divinorum and those types of things.
Okay, and using those on a spiritual path for enlightenment?
Yeah,
or
with
for
the
meditation?
intention of seeing your own inner difficulties, challenges,
Yeah.
overcoming barriers, and ultimately finding maybe your most true nature.
Okay. And in your own life, I guess the evolution of being an author and learning and growing, you've now published your 4th book, The Warrior's Meditation. What can someone expect to learn by reading this book?
So for the Warrior's Meditation, they're going to learn first the principles of meditation that have largely not been exposed anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And once you learn those principles, you're going to learn how to flexibly apply them to your own life. And so the goal of Warriors Meditation is not so that you can retreat from daily life and sit in an ideal situation and put on some background music and create essentially a nice idealistic retreat from life. That's not the goal of it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, the Warriors Meditation is to charge into daily life with awareness. And so the entire system is built upon blending awareness with your daily life, blending clarity with your daily life. And it'll start with, of course, you're going to have to start seated when you first practice, but I'm telling people to get up on day 1 after they've gone through the first session. Now you need to stand up in meditation. You need to walk around in meditation. You need to pick something up, put it down, right? That kind of thing. Now we'll try, jogging in meditation. We'll try swimming in meditation. And and what people find is that It's challenging a bit at first, but after 3 or 4 attempts, actually, I can do it.
Fair.
It doesn't take long at all. So during my morning meditations I teach online, I've, I don't know, a couple thousand people now that are doing it. We'll just like in the middle of meditation, like, now stand up in meditation and start doing jumping jacks, and they're, in meditation, okay, we're going to go get your heart rate up, get up, keep going. And, 4 minutes, 5 minutes later, okay, sit down.
Yeah.
All right. Now, how many of you were able to stay in the meditation that entire time? And some people raise, and some people like, next time we'll do it again. And, the percentages go up and up and up, right? It doesn't take long.
Okay. Tell me, how can people find out more about you? Maybe join your sessions online, buy your book, The Warrior's Meditation, or any of the other 3. What's the best place to track you
If they
down?
purchase the book, The Warrior's Meditation, it comes with a free month's trial of the daily guided meditations.
Okay. And that's through your website.
It's a tremendous value. So, I highly recommend that they do. They can get that on any online, book distributor. And or they could order it through their local bookstore if they wanted to. That's a great way. Or you can just go straight to my website, and it's Richard L Haight, HAIGHT.com, and there's a link at the top, The Warrior's Meditation, and they can just join directly that way if they're not interested in reading the book.
Nice. Any final thoughts? Anything we missed?
Yeah,
There's
meditation aside, what we're really talking about is clarity and awareness. People tend to get really caught up in this idea of what meditation is and all the associations they have with it, as some monk sitting on a mountain or whatever. No, awareness is in your life, and your life is valuable. Every moment of your life is so incredibly valuable, and there's so much that you can harness from it, so much you can learn from it. So long as you're trapped in the biases of your upbringing, of the patterning of your brain, without having the awareness, you miss most of it. Awareness is about just getting the absolute most interaction from your life.
Nice.
Keep it simple.
Nice.
You don't have to climb Mount Everest. Your life has everything you need.
All right.
That's about it.
Thanks for doing this, brother. I appreciate it. And get the book.
Thank you,
guys.
Michael.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Insiders Podcast. We take no responsibility for inaccurate details or facts. If something interests you, we're glad to have brought it to your attention, but please take the time to research the details for yourself.